Hello, my name's Heather Donnelly, and today I'm going to tell you about scent work. When the dog finds the scent, the dog can tell you it's there by either offering a passive indication or active indication. The active indication, there are a few problems with it. It's very good with your beginner dogs to let them dive into, say, the scent's here. But later on, it would be better to put in a passive indication. And really the difference there is the dog will do a behaviour as opposed to help itself. Various behaviours, it's up to the trainer what you want to train. Some will sit, some will do a stare, and you want duration with it as well. But I quite like the passive indications because it's very clear to the handler that you don't actually have to look for vital body language because the dog with its behaviour is saying the item is here. Teaching the passive indication is a bit more difficult. As I said, when you're starting out young dogs, just go for the active indication because you want the enthusiasm of saying, I found it, it's here. So encourage that. So it's later on, once they've got the idea, they're getting the scent right, finding the treats, then you start training it. Train it in several ways. You can do it as an independent exercise. So you can have the scent on a swab. I usually hold it in a couple of tongs so they're not targeting my hand. And normally they go towards to sniff it because they're interested. You can click, you can treat. I then move the swab around at various different heights so the dog is making a step towards it. If the dog isn't particularly interested in it, I actually, behind the tongs, have a little bit of liver there so that will make them go towards it. They'll quickly get the game. Once you've held the swab at different heights, eventually I put it on the floor, and the dog possibly will want to grab it, so I let the dog see where I'm putting it first, and I put it in a doorway so I can close the door and it's actually prized in the gap of the door, equally with maybe a drawer in the kitchen, so it's pegged in. One of my dogs had great delight in just grabbing the swab and bringing it back to me, doing a really nice retrieve, which I didn't want. So if you're able to stick it in somewhere securely, they can't help themselves. I then later on progressed that once they found it, I would then tell them they're a good dog, give them a treat, leave it there, just take them outside, put it back in the same spot because you're helping them at this stage. They're more than likely to go back. Reward them for that, for the second fine, and the next one I would move it just slightly, possibly to the left or the right, so it's in the vicinity, but they're not actually checking a huge area. You want lots of successes really at this rate. Then you need to build duration. You want them to say, yes, it's here. You want to be able to go up towards them and they need to show you that they found it as opposed to running away and you say, now, where was that particular scent? So they need to keep a static position, which is actually quite difficult to train. I put in a stay word. Go for just 1 second at a time. Don't expect sort of long duration to start with, build it up gradually. And if you build up the duration too quickly, the dog will possibly offer you another behaviour by grabbing it, biting it, running off with it, all things you don't really want. You may have even inadvertently clicked for the wrong thing. We're doing this only as a hobby, of course, but in the real world with bomb explosive dogs and some of the drug dogs, when they're searching personnel, the passive indication is a requirement for obvious reasons with explosives. And with searching people, you don't really want the dog over-sniffling around certain areas of the person because I gather there might be quite a few complaints. When you teach the passive indication, just one of the things I found with my dogs is that I start off on boxes, and because they quickly know that you're going to reward the passive indication, one of mine decided that it would go and touch any box, irrespective if there was any odour in it, because it had a reward for touching a box. So if you do get that situation, I just say bad luck. Fortunately for me, I trained 3 dogs and I just pop the other one back in the cage and then get the other dog out. So if there is confusion later on, often I would go back to putting the treats with the scent into the box, and you'll find that the treats tend to override. So later on, I will give them another chance, and once they've given me the passive indication, then again, lots of reward, and I might go up to the box and open the box, and they will obviously have all the liver. So it's offsetting it for every sort of failure. It's just a very short time out, then I give them another chance, because it's during the learning stages they confuse the passive indication with actually finding the scent. Once it's strongly in their mind, then there doesn't seem to be any problems with it. You need to be careful with contamination, especially when they first start. I always put on a rubber glove, so it gives me a conscious effort to only touch scented boxes and items when I have that glove on. Then I'll go and put down my decoys, boxes, whatever, that don't have any scent. I quickly go and wash my hands. So you need to get into that when the dogs are learning. With the active indication, people do rely on looking for very obvious clues from the dog, but you can misread them. It is more difficult, in my mind, to see, especially if I know where it is, the dog would hunt around the area and appear to give up. Clearly, the dog actually said there was nothing there and moved on in its quest to find the scent. So you may be looking at something that isn't there. When I started out, the dogs do just generally make mistakes. So some people would analyse why the dog didn't do this or didn't do this. They do make mistakes, and it's just kind of riding the storm, but obviously working more on the positives and the successes, so it's building up on the dog's confidence. What you need to do, ideally, is get someone else to hide the scent for you. It is a little bit more nerve-wracking. You are watching the dog a lot more intently, and again, you could be reading a few cues there if you were just relying on the active indication that actually aren't meaning anything. So again, if the dog is very, very confident with its desired behaviour that it's found it, the mistakes tend to be less and less. So from time to time, do make a conscious effort of getting other people to hide them, and don't be like my husband and shout and scream and say, I'm really excited, they've got it, because I was supposed to tell them when they got it, not him.